Welcome to the Hell Spiritual Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Amit.
And I am your other host, Jose.
Jose.
Joselito, ¿qué pasó, amigo?
What's up, Jose?
What's up? Honestly, that's people used to call me Joselito, Pepe, and there's other names that I won't say because they're pretty inappropriate and not inappropriate, just rude names.
I feel it. I feel it. Welcome all to this. Like, it seems like really smooth Tuesdays since we've been doing this on this Tuesday schedule.
hmm
Like the vibe I get is like rainy day, coffee, jazz music, and then we just have conversation. It's like it really sets the tone, and I love it.
I wish I had that. I could wake up and listen to some jazz, sip on some coffee, and then slide right into the seat and do a podcast. That is the goal. That is the goal.
What
Once
you
you know, yeah,
what y'all don't know is that I actually play lo-fi music while sipping coffee, and it's raining outside, so like it actually fits the vibe.
it's the vibe. And honestly, I think since we've gotten so much more rain this year, and God knows how many years, it makes me feel like staying home and just having a slow day. Because I
Exactly.
work outside and I have to be in the rain, I have to be in the cold. I'd rather be in the house, having a slow morning, drinking some coffee, listening to some music, doing some reading, do some content work. Just ah. So soon I'll be in that space where I don't have to go into a 9 to 5 job and I am my own boss and I am doing my own thing that allows me to have the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want.
Hell yeah, I definitely support that, and I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you that it relates to the topic very well. Well, before I get caught up in that, announcements.
Announcements.
Yeah.
But wait, announcements.
But wait, there's more.
There's
Uh,
more.
Uh, we appreciate the feedback we get from the community, and like always, it helps us when you guys like support us in that way. On this particular platform, we've been trying to grow the channel, grow the likes and the exposure that we're getting, because like we really want to spread a message of like what we have learned and what we're continuing to learn. So
Yeah.
by like liking the channel, by sending these videos if you relate to them, or if you know someone that else may relate to them, send it
Yeah.
forward, share the videos, and subscribe to the
Send
channel.
it.
We definitely appreciate it, as well as a exciting thing that we got coming up that we're still finalizing the dates on is we are looking for 10 motivated men that want to change their course of life. We're
Yeah.
making a Discover Your Path workshop. It's our first ever free workshop, first ever workshop ever.
Free.
Free. Did we mention free? Gratis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Gratis. Gratis.
and if you or someone you know that is seeking direction, I think it'd be a very good workshop for
Yeah.
that person or yourself. If you're interested in this, please email us at hellaspiritualpodcast@gmail.com or on our mutual Instagram page at Hella Spiritual Podcast.
Yeah.
In like the subject line or in the DM, say, I'm ready. I'm trying to discover my path. We
Well,
hope to see you there. We hope to have like a really good turnout. We don't know what to expect. We're just kind of sending it and seeing what happens. We've been told by a lot of people that they've had beneficial um, takeaways from our men's meeting, and we want to take it a step further to give back to our communities. So if you're available for that or know someone that may be interested in that, please send the email to hellspiritualpodcast@gmail.com or the mutual podcast page at Hell's Spiritual Podcast. And now it's
uh,
so hard to remember all of that.
so you're repeating yourself 2, 3 times. The first time is good, and the second time you mumble a little bit, and after like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
I just want to make sure it's like clear, because I want to say at the beginning, I want to say at the end. We're gonna
Yeah,
start
yeah,
promoting what the dates are. We're gonna meet on that and figure out like the actual timeline for that and put
yeah.
it out there. I think once there's more definition around it, it'll definitely become what it needs to be, and we hope to
Yeah.
see whoever's available show up.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that message. And it's something you've always taught me, and I always try to use it in every aspect of my life. Wherever you're at in your life is welcome. Don't feel that, oh, I'm not there yet, or I'm not in this place, or whatever the case may be. Wherever you're at, that's okay. So meet yourself where you're at. All of that is welcome. Because I've always struggled with starting something because I'm like, I have to do this in order to get to this. I have to do this in order to start. I'm like, no, just start. Like just you're holding yourself back. So if you are in that space of holding yourself back, just lean in. Just sign up and just say be open and see where that takes you. Maybe it might be a breakthrough that you need, or maybe you just need to be there. Who knows what will happen when you open yourself up and you lean into something that's is beneficial to you. At least that's been my experience. So I just want to throw that in there if you're in that space.
No, I really appreciate you for voicing that, because I always go back to like the photography thing. You're like, from an external perspective, when you're voicing it, like, I want to get into photography, and just by mirroring back to you, like, what's stopping you
Yeah,
when you just start,
yeah,
and like that set the ball rolling to where you're at now. Same
yeah.
thing, I could look at myself when I make a, they called it that, make a mountain out of a molehill type of thing. Well, I was like, well, let
Hmm.
me carve some steps in the damn mountain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And start
I
there.
was here.
Exactly. So then segueing back into what you're expressing of slowing down, like,
Yeah,
I do feel
yeah,
that in the air, right?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
see that with when COVID was like really prevalent, people were still trying to do things, or at least I felt like the collective conscious people were still trying to do things, but like there was
Yeah,
nothing to do, right? There
yeah,
was
literally nothing.
it was a slowdown, and then there was a intentional thought of like, what do I do with my time?
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people that I saw in my communities, they chose to like go further into their creative outlets,
Hmm.
and then try to, build some community with the safety in mind at that time, and really get ingrained with the mental health aspect of it and the physical health aspect of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And one of the main things that I can see is, in today's society, like on the copy that we made for the Instagram post, there's this societal thing of
Yeah.
going, and like the attention spans are getting shorter. As far as I see, if you're not intentional about it, I get sucked into it, like the Instagram reels, YouTube shorts, and TikToks. They all have their own names, but it's the same short format content, like under a minute, or like maybe 15 seconds. The average duration viewed is about 3 seconds, right? 4 or 5 seconds. Get to the point, give me the thing, go to the next thing.
Yeah,
And when you
yeah,
do
yeah.
that so often with what you consume, at least from my perspective that I've also seen, it makes it really difficult to pay attention to things when I'm trying to be very intentional with it.
Mhm.
And I integrate that in my other life of like, oh, I'm doing like 17 different things at once, but I'm just drinking a bunch of coffee, vibrating with anxiety, not doing anything, but running through thoughts in this circle. I've gotten there before.
Mhm.
So what do we do? Like,
Yeah.
do we allow ourselves to slow down, get back into our own energy, tap
Mhm.
into the body, see what's going on, tap in with the inner child, and see if
Mhm.
that connection's strong? Like, check in with ourselves, or
Yeah.
do we perpetually just say, "Nah, another coffee," and keep going? I've done both, so like it's not
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
wrong either way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's and I think we covered a little bit about this in the episode where we talked about celebrating our wins and slowing things down and being aware of what's going on in our lives and slowing things down and really appreciating things for what they are instead of moving on to the next thing. And when you propose this idea around this topic, I was like, wow, this is actually exactly where I'm at. I'm in place of a burnout. uh, and I've been in these places before, and it's been worse of a burnout. So I'm just feeling this sense of, man, like I'm doing a lot. I'm expanding myself in so many different ways. And they're all good stuff. When I talk to people and they ask me what I got going on in my life, I lay out things I'm doing. They're like, oh my God, like you're doing so much. Like, how you do all this? I prioritize time to do things that are aligned with me that fulfill me. But that doesn't also mean that I don't get burnt out because I'm always doing something. And that's where I have to intercept myself and pause and integrate some play, integrate some um, nurturing, some self care. You okay, Amit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
I monitor all of these things.
it just reminded me of that one time when there was a squirrel on my roof, and I just went like this. um, so yeah, it's just for me, I'm recognizing it as I'm feeling it, and I think for me that's growth because in the past I would have not felt it, and now just crash and burn. I just be completely exhausted. Remember, there's times where I'd be in my bed, just completely laying there, just like done. Like I couldn't even get up to drink some water. I couldn't even get up to get a snack or anything like that. And that's just me just running myself down till I have no energy. Um, and so I mean, so right now I'm in that place of okay, I'm feeling myself a little burned out. I'm feeling myself expanding myself too much. And like I mentioned earlier, it's all good stuff. Like everything that I lay out, like coaching, uh, the business aspect. You know, you and I have been working to build my website. We're doing the podcast, my photography. I work a 9 to 5 job. You know, typical adult stuff, which is errands, taking care of my house, laundry, groceries, meal prepping, self care, working out, going on hikes, and then family, and then hanging out with friends. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and sometimes I get in the space of I'm not doing enough. And when I do give myself the opportunity to relax and take it easy, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And that's something we can really dive into. Um, or I say, oh, I had a lazy day. Because I've heard a few people that I talked to recently, I had a lazy day. And I had to remind them, I was like, you didn't have a lazy day, you had a slow day. You had a me day. And they're like, yeah, I actually like the way you reframe that. I feel like lazy has such a negative like energy to it that you should be productive, but you're not. You're choosing to be lazy. I just don't like using that word. I do believe there is times that you can be lazy and you're procrastinating because you don't want to do some stuff. I'm definitely at fault of that. But I think having awareness around that and taking the proper actions to shift out of certain spaces where it is conducive and it is nurturing. So for us, and we'll talk more about it, like when we said slowing things down and self-care, we're talking about like nurturing ourselves to the point where we can come back and fully show up authentically in all those spaces that we're contributing. Because if we're not slowing down and nurturing ourselves, how can we show up for other things if we're not even showing up for ourselves? It's like trying to fill someone else's cup when your cup is not full.
Exactly. And there's different dynamics to this that I appreciate you touched on a lot of them. Um, one of the things that I'll pull out from that is that like it's humanizing yourself. It's
Yeah,
bringing you back to being human. I talked about
yeah,
society norms. I talked about how it's basically like robotic. You're like on as long as you're awake. You're just on. And
yeah,
you talked about all the things that you invest time into and how they have different priorities. And then when you're not in that, where your body or mental capacity, you're like tired and you hit burnout, you're like, you just have to straight drop down. And that sounds like if we're going to like a little bit more of a macro space of this, in the trauma response, right? When we're in that threshold where it's just like burnout and like after anxiety to like sloth and like slowing down really into darkness. And
hmm
we're trying to create sine smooth waves through here. And in trauma response, we're hitting that upper threshold, and like two things are going to happen. We can self-regulate and come back down and like come back to our own gravitational pull of our own
hmm
sphere, or spike into anxiety or overwhelm, and then it's just straight down
Yeah,
into that.
depression. Yeah,
So when I hear you say these things, because they're all combined into this is one long arc,
yeah,
right? You wake up and it's incrementally adding on to your day. You're looking at your agenda of like, what can you fit into today? Where can you
hmm
show up for these things? And if we're constantly doing that, there is a point where it's going to break.
yeah,
So there's
yeah,
that level of like, I'm for pushing your edges,
yeah,
but I think on this particular episode, I wanted to also talk about how to acknowledge that before hitting that straight down. Like when you're hitting
yeah,
that, when you're near the edge, when there's things that are coming up and you feel overwhelmed,
yeah,
what to do. And I wanted to
yeah,
segue a little bit into that,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
talk about modalities that we can end up using, talking
Yeah.
about the self-care, the nurturing
Mhm.
aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like just segue into what we're going to talk about. The first thing you could probably do is when you are feeling this burnout come in, talk to yourself in a very nurturing way. And what I've been doing is when I do feel like I'm doing a lot, I'm expending a lot of energy, and I'm feeling like a little burnout. I talk to myself like, "Oh, hey, Jose, I'm realizing that I am putting a lot of energy. Maybe it's time to slow things down a little bit. Let's nurture ourselves. Let's get something that we really enjoy." Like I took myself on a 2 weeks in a row to some ice cream dates. Like I wanted
You and
ice
that
cream. I wanted,
you and that ice cream boy. Yeah, I saw that.
bro.
I was so happy
Yes,
for you.
I needed that, and I wanted to honor that part of myself that wanted the ice cream. So I did. I drove all the way to Albany, grabbed some ice cream. People think I'm crazy. Like, dude, you can just go down the street. I'm like, you just don't understand.
You don't get it. You don't get
You
it.
don't get it. This ice cream is special to me. It's so tasty. But I think talking to yourself in a very nurturing, calming way is such a profound experience, not just intellectually, but like somatically. Especially if you grew up in a house where it was all about productivity and
Mhm.
achievements and accomplishments. There was no room for just to be human and just to be. Um, you picked up a lot of that energy from your parents or whoever you raised you. When you are wanting to slow things down, you have that voice talking it down to you. So this is where that inner parenting comes in clutch to soothe yourself, nurture yourself, give yourself that love and compassion, and really give yourself that love to slow things down, and tell yourself that it's okay to slow things down. It's okay. Like on Sunday, I was really burnt out from the week. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna make myself some French press. I'm gonna watch a goddamn movie. I had to meal prep, but I was like, you know what? I want to watch a movie first. Let me cater to that inner child of just wanting to watch a movie. And for me, watching movies, I don't watch a lot of movies. It's kind of like an inner child thing I do, but I wanted to have more of a slower kind of morning. So I was like, you know what? Let me do that. I made my coffee. I ended up watching a scary movie, which scared the fuck out of me. I don't know why I decided to watch a scary movie first thing in the morning. I was stressing the fuck out. I was like in the pillow, like covering my face. I'm like, why did I do this to myself first thing in the morning? It made no sense.
It reminds me of one of those memes. Is like, oh, you feel alone? Watch a scary movie at night. You definitely won't feel alone anymore. I was like, that's such a way to traumatize yourself. But it's going through the ranges of emotions, right? So you're in a safe
Yeah,
container,
yeah,
experiencing a healthy dose of fear through a story,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it plays out with that.
yeah.
Things that I wanted to kind of go a little bit back into. You express some of the modalities that you may want to do right before you choose to do those things, right? Because like I'm trying to think about 3 years ago where I was at. How did I operate my life, and like what was I doing? And it was operated off of a lot of anxiety, and like I thought that I was like it's like high functioning anxiety for me. That's how I
Yeah.
feel like I had approached things, and I sometimes do it, but I leverage it when I just want to go in full send it mode and just like get a
Yeah.
bunch of things, but I'll do it for a segmented amount of time.
Yeah.
So when I usually feel overwhelmed, when I feel like there's shortness of like breath, or like I'm looking at it and I'm just like I don't know how I can do all this, and it just feels down. I feel this I feel weight,
Mm,
right? That's when I usually start to be like, all right, I need to take a break. Mine is
mhm.
solidarity. Mine is going outside, listening to like nature and being with what the thoughts are like coming up. My own sort of like conscious format of meditation. And what I personally do is I look at my agenda. I look at what when I come across something and it says something to my body, right? Where I scan my body of like what's coming up. I'll see where that priority really needs to be. I'll do fact check. Like, is it really a priority, or am I making it a higher priority? If I'm
Mm,
making it a higher priority, then is there something attached to this, such as what you're talking about, the productivity when we're growing up, or
yeah.
achievement based words of affirmation?
Yeah.
Am I people pleasing in this?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this aligned with myself currently? Do I
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
do something else that is aligned with myself? And then it's
Yeah.
going talking with the inner child of like, Do you want to go play for an hour? Like you said, going to the ice cream. Me, I'll set a timer on my computer, and I'll go play video games for a little bit. And like me, I'm online playing with random people from all over the world, and it's kind of fun because of the funny situations that happen, and like that's my levity. And
Yeah.
then after that hour is done, I'll jump back into the thing and I'll reevaluate the agenda and see, does that still have an effect on me, or have I fulfilled that part that I felt I was lacking in, right?
Yeah.
And for someone trying to integrate this just general habit of like checking in,
Mhm.
you may not be used to it. What I started off
Yeah.
doing was setting timers throughout the day. Maybe like 4 or 5 timers, like every 2 hours, every 3 hours, because what comes up usually in those amount of times.
Mhm.
Um, External stimuli of like, oh, you got to do this, or like, oh, this bill came, or like, oh, this person wants to go skateboard, and you're like, and you add on these dynamics. Is that adding pressure? What is really a
Mhm.
priority in this? When can you actually do it? Or
Yeah.
two, sustenance, like food. There's a
Heal.
the phrase of hungry, angry,
Halt.
lonely, tired, halt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I feeling lonely? Am I tired? Am I in a trauma response? Am I doing too much? Can I set some of these for the next day because these things need priority and more attention today?
Mhm.
It's okay to restructure,
Yeah.
right? um Timers have been definitely helpful for me, and like me,
Yeah.
I'm like the the anxiety is always going to be there at some sort of level, but I have a better handle on it now because I'm like, all right, you want to just go full spaz, then all right, we're going to go exercise really hard for like 30 minutes, move the body, move the energy around, go
Yeah.
outside, recollect, come back, play some video games, and then hop back into work.
Mhm.
Those are the my usual go-tos of my first layer tool belt, right?
Mhm.
And going into like checking with the inner child, coming back to where I was at, then there's things that I could do to self-soothe. And I spoke about a few of them, but usually it's quiet. I need quiet because my brain is like always on, and like when I'm editing videos or I'm on like Discord or something, like there's a lot of stimuli going on, and I try not to touch my phone anymore, which
Mm.
has been very interesting. The social media aspect that I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like I stopped using the timer on the phone. I've got the timer app on the damn computer. So it's about integrating what sort of works and adapting to move away from things. And if I want to kind of death scroll, like I'll do that after I've done a certain amount of things. But I'll set a timer on the phone first. I can get
Mhm.
carried away with that for a long time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And no matter where you are at, like you said earlier, it is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Habits take time to break.
Yeah.
New habits take time to create. So just even something that you did differently every day, you face different choices.
Yeah.
If you want to live in that higher self, what are the choices you have to make now that build a foundational thing to get to that way that you view yourself? Some of these are like, maybe I won't have that extra cookie. Maybe I won't put too much on a Monday and like spread it out through 3 days, right?
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
I could add time to just take a nap, to like do a 15-minute meditation, to
Mhm.
stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think society has shifted a little bit around self-care, and they've been making it more a priority. And that's one thing that's been kind of some of the benefits of like COVID, and how people have been able to look inward and start exploring more, you know, therapy, more healing practices. Um, because I feel like everything I see now is about that, and it's beautiful. Unfortunately, that I had to happen around this, pandemic, and a lot of people passed away, and a lot of crazy stuff has happened. But been some beauty that came out of that. I've had conversations with a lot of people that prioritize self care and do yoga and do meditations, and they move the body, they go on hikes, they integrate other practices in their life that creates more space for them so they can show up for other people. So I do want to let people know and put that out there that I see you, and I think it's beautiful that the site has been shifted around more nurturing those aspects of ourselves. Um, but even with all that, we're still, like you said, it takes time to create a new habit. It takes time to make it something that's it's part of your routine now. Uh, for me, since I'm so used to doing things a certain way, it takes a little time to integrate something new into my life. But also, too, I will say that if it's a priority in my life, it's gonna move up the ladder, like regardless. Like I just know that. Um, because I used to use the excuse I don't have enough time, which is bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit, and I'm calling it right now. I was that person for a long time. It's just I didn't understand how to prioritize different things in my life. And as I got through a lot of burnouts and saying yes to a lot of things, I realized that wait, I have a choice in to allow things that are conducive to my life now, or things that are not conducive to my life. And that's where the self-awareness kicks in, and then the action takes over after that. Of like, okay, where am I in my life? Where am I unbalanced? That's something that I used to do this with my old spiritual advisor around. I would say every year we'll do
A
a
balance
balance
chart.
chart,
Yep.
and we'll do like a pie chart, and we'll lay out all the priorities in order, and then we'll break them down. Okay, how often do you do those a week? How often you do them per day? How many hours per day? And you start filling it out, and then you add it into your pie chart, and you realize like all the time when I did that, I realized the things that were a priority in my life that I've jotted down, I did not put that much time into them. And I was like, whoa, like family was a high priority, but I barely spent any time with them. And so I started making adjustments. Okay, I could take a little time from this, I could take a little time from theirs, and move that around and find a little more balance where I am spending more time with the family. Or if there's a category that had self care or me time, I love my me time, but my me time only has 1 hour a week. And how am I running my life with all these other things and I'm not even taking care of myself? So that's another thing that was really helpful for me. Maybe we could, throw that in there. We could probably do like a little workshop around helping people prioritize things and create, more balance in their lives. So that might be a good idea to throw something out like that, because I do hear a lot of people say I don't have time. I'm like, you have time. It's just you
It's
just haven't found the balance on like how to prioritize things, and your people pleasing tendencies are kind of taking over where you feel unbalanced.
yeah, and I like that you brought in the balance chart because that relates to this very well.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
forgot
like
about that, dude.
I tend to bring it up with like anyone that I meet that also expresses similar things of I got all this stuff going on. Like I need to pull back on this because I don't feel I have enough time. But it's like it's not fulfillment. They're looking for fulfillment from another bucket that's not what they need.
Yeah.
And I like how you went into that aspect of it. And yeah, it could be definitely a pillar of one of the workshops, most definitely, because that's been a valuable tool. And like I was
Oh yeah,
doing it like every quarter, and like I'll usually
yeah.
do it now only when I'm in like everything's on fire. You know that meme with the dog with the mug?
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. This is fine. Like,
This is fine. I'm good.
but
Don't mind me.
yeah, just like he was saying, it's like draw a circle, center point is 0, outer circle is 10 or 5, whatever system you want to rate, and
Mhm.
draw a line as each from the center out, and each one is a pillar of your life that you put your energy towards.
Yeah,
And examples would be for me, cars would be family, would be friends, would be career, my own business, things like that. And
yeah,
how satisfied or fulfilled do you feel in each one of those? And just put like a
yeah.
little mark on like where you feel from 0 to 5, and then connect the dots. That
Mhm.
the funnest part is it's like this big reveal of like,
Yeah.
is it we're trying to be well balanced, and balance means circle, regardless of like kind of like where it's at or whatnot, but like
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much as a circle as it can be. And usually it turns into like one of those 1980s arcade asteroid things or Pac-Man, and
Yeah,
it's like this weird star. And then you
yeah,
get to see like, oh, this pillar I'm not spending enough time into, but I
yeah.
thought I was, but I don't
Mhm.
feel fulfilled about it. This
Yeah,
is like where it goes hand in hand with thinking intentionally about it, intentionally slowing down,
yeah,
intentionally checking in.
yeah, yeah,
Once you get
yeah.
in the habit of doing that, like maybe you don't need the balance chart all the time. You've got ingrained with that habit from
Mhm.
doing it this way because the thought process is what matters.
Yeah,
And you instantly knows like, you know what, I haven't been spending enough time dropping down, and I want to take more self-care of like taking myself out on hikes or like going and get ice cream or going for a drive, things of that nature.
yeah,
I like that you
yeah.
brought it up into that because like it's human to do that. You're gonna go up, you're gonna go down, and like even nature has its seasons. I think I was talking to you about it when we were talking about the topic, which was I've noticed at the swing of the year, I'm trying to go do a bunch of things, but like it's too cold or it's raining or like something's going on and like I can't show up for it or people aren't in the space to receive what I'm trying to show up for. And I have to acknowledge that like even the seasons change, winter nature slows down and then the springtime all this greenery comes back up, it's ready to bloom and like flourish again and it's a continuous cycle, right?
Yeah, I just realized my microphone wasn't turned on at all.
I thought it was, yeah.
It's on now.
This is what the mic check's for. Because I think it was using your headphone mic. All right, we're starting over. Welcome to the Ellis Richard podcast.
Special podcast. I am your host, Jose.
Yeah, it sounds way different now.
Yeah. Sorry, people. I don't know why I looked over. I'm like, why is that missing? I was like, oh crap! And then I looked down, and I realized the lights were in green. remember they used to say, "Start over,
Start over.
start over." Oh God. And see, yes, you gotta laugh at yourself at times like that. Things are not perfect. It's been a busy month or busy year so far. And sometimes you gotta laugh at yourself. I think it's nice to do that. We're not rigid. We're trying not to be rigid, and it's part of just being a human. Just normalize a mistake, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
But my voice sounds a lot better now.
yeah, it does. Because I was like, it does sound a little weird, but I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
no,
sounds crispier now.
so crisp, so clean. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So lesson learned, just do a longer mic check, make sure all the things on there have the checklist and be good. But yeah, I like how you expressed because it's reparenting, right?
Mhm.
You had a choice that came up there. You're like, oh, this wasn't done. And the choice would have been either say the thing from that was conditioned into you, which is probably of hypercriticism, or integrate some levity into it and be like, well, that I'm human. Things happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
And like I think that's a part of the self-soothing, right?
Yeah.
Of I also when I'm doing a bunch of things and I maybe hit some burnout, I'm like, I get the feeling that I am not enough.
Yeah.
And when that comes up, it's not true. It's not factual.
Yeah.
It's something that I learned somewhere to keep me going, but then it drains me longer. So I'm like, if I make subtle mistakes on things, it's another sign to me that like maybe I should take a little more intention and slow down with this. Maybe I could show up to this commitment a little bit earlier so that I'm showing up as present as I can. Just do
Mhm.
the checks and whatnot. Right. To me, that is using that anxious energy that I was trying to show up last minute and adding a buffer to then show up intentionally, and it is more sustainable in the
Yeah.
long run, right? So I want to talk about any other modalities of dropping down, and then also the opposite of this, which is when we drop down, what does that provide us when we pick back up? So modalities around dropping down, we talked about how to isolate what may be coming up. We talked about like also like where is the energy in your body versus like when you're looking at something because you're gonna have it's kind of like cats are on my mind right now.
If Amit needs to adopt a cat.
we have like three stray cats. One is blind and like I just made a little shelter for the rain. She's sitting in it,
Oh.
but I can't hold it. I want to hold him. One of our buddies, he's got like two or three cats, and I went over to this place to cut his hair and whatnot, and like one just kept looking at you and he's like, pet me. It's adorable. Animals are really wonderful. Anyways,
Yeah.
going back to cats.
Cats.
They're a cat's eyes, similar to like a human's eyes, will open and close or dilate like when they are seeing something, and they're more attached to their emotions because they don't have that much logic compared to us as humans. So there was a video or TikTok or whatever the hell it was that I seen that it goes, look at my cat's face or my cat's eyes when I show her her favorite toy and hide it. And it showed like when the pupils dilate or like get bigger,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh my God. Right. And you get excited, or like even like if there's someone that you love, that's gonna same thing is gonna happen. The opposite ends up coming up if there's something that is like, okay, I want to hard focus on like this agenda, and does that make me feel a certain way? Your body's responding to it. It's up to you if you see it or not. And where
Mhm.
you hold the energy is what's either being conditioned onto you, or what you're thinking of yourself, or what's actually true. And it's up to you to decipher that. For me, holding anger is in my gut of like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I need to do harder. And I'm like, okay, I sense some anger here. Or like, oh no, I can't do all this stuff. I'm afraid I'm not gonna make it. It's gonna be in my upper back. Or like
Yeah,
maybe it's something that I need to speak to someone. My throat hurts. Or is there some energy there?
yeah,
That gives me
yeah.
some idea of like, okay, there may be some other things here that may be deeper. Can I work on this and like show up as best I can? Usually is yes, because I have awareness about it. And then I can move forward through it. So it's listening to the body, and those are the ways where the energy is held into the body. Then we talk about the inner child, and we spoke a lot of this on the other podcasts, the other episodes of usually there's some internal tantrum that may be going on because a need is not met. The balance chart helps you see some of that in the aspects of, for me, video games, driving car, time with friends, because those are important pillars to have that communal aspect, right? And when I tap into that, I'm like, okay, what am I missing? But if I maybe feeling a little bit lonely, feeling like I'm just in lone wolf mode, I want community. I'll phone a friend. I'll hop on Discord, and usually some of my friends are online. Or I'll go into another Discord and I'll just make some friends, right? Or venture out into the world. However you make friends. There's many ways to make friends in today's age,
Yeah.
and that fulfills that part of it. The reparenting aspect of it is integrating discipline, right? And this is two ways. One, to start back up. We'll go into that in a minute. And two, to actually, like how you said, you set intentional time and you go and do the activity, which is
Mhm.
watching a scary movie, cowering underneath the covers because you chose to do that. And for me, it's like I'm gonna intentionally play video games. I'm not looking at the phone. I'm not looking at any of my work. I'm setting this space intentionally for what I want to do want to do,
Mhm.
right? So that way, like when I jump back into work, I'm not thinking of like, oh, I forgot to do this, or like, oh, I wanted to play this. That's the rundown that I see for navigating from response or feeling burnout to acknowledgement to where is this stemming from to positive self-talk with self-soothing, right? And then discipline in the format of creating the space for it.
Yeah.
Are there any other modalities that come to mind for you in any of those aspects?
No, I mean, I kind of already laid out, my process around that. Um, and the reparenting is very important, very critical. The awareness, the checking in with yourself, regulating the nervous system to come back into more of a homeostasis place where you feel more safe and there's more clarity and you're not in this survival state of being. Because yeah, survive. I think burnout is equivalent of it could be equivalent to survival. You're doing so much regardless of what the intentions are behind those actions that you're taking. Maybe you're trying to prove something. Maybe you're trying to fight this feeling of if I'm not productive, then I'm not worthy of anything. That's something that that plagued me for a long time. That's always how I felt. If I'm not productive, then I'm not worthy of anything. And my productivity was connected to my worthiness, which is not true. There is some truth to that, but it doesn't have to be the completely truth. Like so, when I slow things down, give myself some nurturing aspect, um, and I soothe myself, I'm okay with that. Like that's okay. But see, intellectually, I know that the adult self knows that, and this is where, like we said many times, the reparenting connected with the inner child comes in clutch because the inner child doesn't know the difference. It just feels something and it outwardly pours out the energy. And usually when it outpours it out, it doesn't match the situation at all. So that's a good way to indicate, oh wow, it's actually my inner child being triggered in this situation. He's the one who's speaking up right now because this situation does not match my reaction at all. And so that's the opportunity you get to, oh wow, like little Pepe is not feeling safer now. Okay, let me connect with him. Let me talk to him. Let me ask him what he needs. Maybe he needs a request, and then I have to honor that request and give that to him. And then this is where, like you mentioned, the discipline aspect. Okay, now that we did this, now I'm gonna take over and take care of these things that we need to take care of so we can move forward in whatever aspects that we need in our lives. So everything's just it's really a lot of inner world first, and then outer world comes next. Because the inner world is like not aligned, it's not connected. The outer world is just a mess as well too.
Yeah, I like that you touched on that because all that is interconnected.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
um, some of the things that I wrote down because I'm on my like starting up. I was like resting and slowing down the last few days, so like I have a whole bunch of notes that I'm just gonna try and go over really quick. Um, it's counterintuitive usually when we're faced with something that we may think we need to go faster. That is
Mhm.
actually the time or that mental note to drop down and check in.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, everything that we've said like earlier will come into play. And it
Mhm.
takes time and intention to do that. And maybe slowly, just like a baby has to start crawling to learn to walk, it takes time to integrate that type of habit. Some of the modalities that I ended up writing down is like kind of separating the mind and the body. So for me, when you slow the mind, like there's things that you could do, such as meditating, and it doesn't have to be traditional meditation, more like washing your car or like
Go on a
building
hike.
going on a hike or like photography or skateboarding, something that you like put your attention towards, and the thoughts are just gonna go, they're gonna flow. You could either
Yeah.
use the semi-traditional way, which is like photography, or I'm gonna use that example right now, where you're looking for the shots, and like as you're doing this, there's a sense of calm that comes up, and the thoughts that come up, you could objectively look at them. Traditional
Mhm.
ones is actually just looking at the thoughts. Either way, it's like you're seeing what's coming up. And usually, when I go into like maybe a 5 minute meditation to just see how fast the information superhighway in my brain is going,
Yeah.
I can gauge like how turbulent I feel at the moment.
Mhm.
And other aspects are I use power naps. I set a 16-minute timer because anything longer than that, you don't really get rest. Like it's just you end up getting sleepy. Uh, and less stimulation. I put my phone down. I usually have it on the upside down, or I throw it on my bed when I'm like working on my computer and such. Of Yeah, meditating, and then grounding into the body because I spoke about a lot of other things for the mind. Moving energy, I think it's been the most helpful for me, which looks like for some maybe yoga, or for some it's like calisthenics, or like exercising to like like burn off some of that energy wherever may be stored, to look at it at a much more grounded level. Doing somatic work, breath work, right? You and I have been touching on that a little bit more, of regulating the body. Like we need
Yeah.
oxygen, and leveraging that towards being more present has definitely been helpful, especially like when the body wants to get up and fight or flight, fawn, freeze,
Yeah.
get back into the body because the mind's going to respond to that. Other aspects are like also, I started doing this, is eating more grounding food, such as carrots, beets, garlic, ginger, radish. Like your diet has a huge effect on this.
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in like what you consume, physical, audible, visual, all has an aspect on your collective conscious. Then you and can end up either perpetuating that and
Mhm.
projecting that outward, or putting more healthier inputs in to then give back out more authentic energy because it's going to be more fluid in that.
Yeah.
So now I want to segue into send it energy.
Send it.
Send it energy. So like
Send it.
kind of going from when I was messing with the copy earlier, like I was listening to some music, and that song can't no, it's actually a Black Eyed Peas song. It's like can't keep running, running, keep running, running. And then I was like, what else is running in it? And then Farside came up. It's just can't keep running away, right? So you can't run away from your own body.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that came up to me. And then I was like, what was that other song? It's just slow down. You know you can't catch me.
I
I
got
move
you.
too
Going
fast
too
on the
fast,
gas.
too
Don't
fast.
chase
I'll
me.
start.
I was like,
Slow
Clyde
down.
Carson. So
Hey.
these are like kind of polar things. One is intentionally looking at like you can't run away from these things. Face it at the level that you're comfortable with, but eventually face through and walk through with grace with all the other things. And then get into the other energy of like, I'm gonna just send it. Right.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about all this, I noticed for me as like a creative, I tend to get blocks. And those blocks happen when I'm doing a lot of things all at once and I'm not prioritizing sleep, rest, or what I'm consuming, right? Like I've switched to lo-fi music and 90s hip hop of like these are slower beats and like more thought provoking and they slow me down and have me like look at life a little different. Then like when I'm turning back on to like, all right, let's go send it, let's do something. It's gonna be like disco house or like trance or like, you know what I mean? Like all these tropical house. Like I'm in that groove, that little funky beat.
Hey.
And the creative energy, the motivation, the inspiration, the want, like it's more potent. It's more concentrated. And I notice when I have conversations with others in those times, I have the tendency to want to like give way more. Just like how you're saying at the beginning of this is like the pouring from an empty cup
Yeah.
or pouring from a cup that's got a bunch of holes in it. Like patch the little holes, the little things that may come up, and pour more into yourself to then pour out to others. Because when you're in that energy, then you end up getting the energy back from the community. It pours upon itself, and it's this cycle, right? So I wanted to touch on those things because, like, one, I wanted to mention the songs because, like, you know, it reminds me of when we're on the couch talking on the actual podcast.
Yeah.
You just go
Yeah.
into some lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. So once you're in a space of nurturing yourself, slowing things down, grounding yourself, it's raining.
Yeah, no, it hits the window and it sounds like thunder, or it sounds like something's trying to break in. I
Oh,
also
dude,
saw,
it's
I
the
also
wind
saw a
is
scary,
crazy.
I also saw a scary movie the other day. So like, I'm a little getting
Wait,
a
which
little
one did you watch?
incantation.
Okay, I saw a smile.
That was also creepy.
Bro, that's just gonna fuck out of me. But yeah, so just like everything that we talked about, grounding yourself, regulating yourself, slowing things down, checking in with yourself, um, looking at things that causing you to burn out, all these things that we mentioned. Now that we've come back to ourselves, we ground ourselves, we nurture ourselves, we soothe ourselves. Now we can get out there and use the energy that we've created within ourselves to pour it out. Now we can take the actions in a more regulated, more conscious, more intentional way instead of running in like survival kind of like mindset, full anxiety and just gunning it. um, at times it could be good. I know a bit leans on the anxiety more than I do.
This
My
this this this
manifest,
is fine.
yeah, my manifest in different ways. But yeah, I think that's kind of like where we kind of landed at is okay. We do all these modalities to come back to self-soothe ourselves. Okay, now we can implement these actions to move forward. So we are taking care of business, quote unquote, but in a more about my business.
No, in my head it was taking care of business because I've been listening to funk, right? Go on.
uh, but yeah, so you can organically go out there and take care of the things that are in line with you, whether it's your job, this is your family, your friends. Be more authentic to yourself, to your peers. Be more intentional how you put your energy out, and it's all part of the human experience. And I think that's why I'm always trying to bring that back because we're not robots. We're not, you can't just press a button to us and we just go. I mean, we can go, but we're going to fucking like collapse. We're going to burn out and we're going to feel that. And not only us, not only are we going to feel it, the people around us going to feel it because they're not going to get our authentic selves when we are in those spaces. I know when I'm not in the grounding place, I'm not regulated, and I'm not in a clear mindset. People feel that. They're like, "Hey, you're not your usual self." I'm like, "Oh, that's right," because I'm not, and I'm just like burnt the fuck out, and I don't have the capacity to be in those spaces. Um, so yeah, I hope that like the things that we talked about gives you some ideas, and maybe gives you an opportunity to look at your own stuff and maybe create a own balance chart and see what your priorities are, where you're putting your energy at. Maybe there's places in your life where you're not putting enough energy into it, or maybe you just need more energy to yourself. Honestly, I think a lot of people need to put energy into themselves, because we
Yeah.
forget about ourselves a lot.
Yeah, because I wanted to touch on that as well. Because it is, we talked about a lot of the importance of doing the self-care, the dropping down, and like when to do that, what blocks may come up, modalities around it,
Mhm.
to now picking back up, like how is it once you have rested compared to when you have not rested. You touched on being very present and showing up in your whole energy. um what was the last thing you said? I was
I
going
have no idea.
I was going somewhere with this. I forgot where it was. Damn.
Don't ask me. I don't remember. I just talk.
Well, you talked about also like it's humanizing, right? That
Yeah,
like
we're not robots.
we're not robots. We may feel like it, and we do that sprint. I like doing those sprints on occasion, but there's some times where I'm like, this is not conducive to my health, and I need to slow down. And then when I do drop down, I set intentional times, and I that's another thing you're talking about, the putting priority on self care, putting priority on putting time into yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about. Um, a lot of people, in my personal experience in some of my communities, don't do that.
Yeah.
And in this is like kind of incorporating personal boundaries,
Yeah.
just like how you were like, if you have a 9 to 5 job and you're in kind of like doing the thing, you know you have to go to bed at a certain time, you know you
Yeah.
need to get a certain amount of hours of sleep to then show up as presently as you can. Taking the same concepts and putting that into, I want to show up in my own energy in my own body as best I can,
Mhm.
will take you further than that. You'll actually have more energy for that because you're fulfilling things for yourself in that respect of,
Yeah.
I'm going to go get extra amount of sleep, or like I'm going to turn my phone off an hour early and put it on the bedside and just be with myself and watch this show. Because like, I don't know, I remember watching TV and like there we didn't have a computer in our pockets vying for our attention all the time. And like I remember I loved that time. Like I was watching Toonami and like Cartoon Network and like all the stuff on like Adult Swim and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The all the late night cartoons. And it was fun. And I was like, how is that different from now? Well, I found myself going for my phone a lot. I found myself like getting distracted. I was like, set intentional time to do stuff,
Yeah.
right? Pour time into yourself. Pour time for that creative outlet that you've been prolonging, saying like it I need to get the equipment for it. I'm a believer in that. That I've done that. I was like, oh, I can't do this certain thing until I have all the equipment. False. You can start with whatever you have. Meet yourself where you're at, like I always say, with whatever equipment you have, and start on it. And I'm talking specifically in the reference of doing things for yourself. You want to try out a new restaurant? Go look at the menu first.
Mhm.
You don't have to just be like, oh, I got to go there and find part. I do that. That's my anxiety acting up. Before I
Yeah.
go out on like dates or something or go to a new restaurant, I'll Google Earth that like the day before to see where the parking spaces are around it because I'm a car person. So that way it lessens the anxiety for the day of, and I also look in like the travel time with traffic. And these are
Mhm.
things that I do beforehand because there's small steps leading up to the bigger thing. Because
Mhm.
the less anxiety that I could participate in the day of or during the event of, the
Yeah.
better. And that's putting energy and time into myself,
Yeah.
right? Um, and the potency of after you've done that. Like one of the things I wanted to express on here is that the things that you may have been worried about getting done and that you're reaching burnout for, your cognitive ability was not like there. Planning is easier. Agenda prioritization is easier. You're not as susceptible to the triggers as often as when it comes up. It becomes like an easier, more fluid way of life. And you start erring on that. Like I always talk about the energy scale. Like hope is the middle energy. Then there's like fear, worry, gluttony, all that other stuff down here. Well, you end up shifting into hope and then like into like, oh, but what if? What if like I did this, and your creative energy just blooms and other people around you, like you expressed, feel that.
Yeah.
And we can also, the last point on there is it goes from external validation to internal validation. You end up self-validating,
So,
and what did I write here? Self something, but you end up self-regulating, you get in
soothing.
tune, self-soothing with yourself, and you're not
Yeah.
looking at for that external, be it playing for too long on hours on video games when you have something else done. Like it manages time a little better. Things become a little bit clearer. That was my main takeaway from it. Like it's yeah, we're not robots. We can choose to participate in this go 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 mentality or not. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And we do have time for it. The amount of time that I have gotten back from not picking up my phone constantly and going on the social media things, do a social media cleanse for like a month. Just delete the app, not your account, trial that. And then like the added step that I remember you did back in October that I implemented was like only hop on when you get home on in front of your computer. Then you could check Facebook or Instagram because they're all accessible
Yeah.
from the desktop as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you can take your time back. You could do it in these ways that we've expressed in the early part of this video. We talked about the modalities of all these to the point where how it would benefit yourself in your own creative outlet, your own space, your own self-care, to how this affects others around you. And like whatever your moral code that pushes you towards motivation to try something else, lean on that. Because I had to hear it 5 different ways. And the one that resonated with me the most, right, was how can I make the world a better place? It starts with me and how I relate to it in my vision, not vision, my perspective. And if I have a very nihilistic perspective of everything, that's what I'm gonna attract. That's what I'm gonna put out. And I don't want to give that back out to the world. So the way that I change the world is by changing my own energy first, getting back into my own energy, doing the things that are filling my cup, and also prioritizing what I give out to others. Am I giving good energy? Am I showing up as the person that I want to be?
Yeah.
Right. And like envisioning that higher self where I want to be can start right now by the actions that I choose to do or not do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drop the mic.
Just, yeah. But yeah, we talked about all of that. We appreciate those of you that join. We appreciate those of you that support us. We've been getting a little bit more engagement on Instagram lately. We appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you.
Um, we're trialing different things with the social media where it's like mindful for us in our busy lives,
Yeah.
and we're making a priority for the things that I think would benefit like the community the best.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not perfect by any means.
Yeah.
This is what I realized. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was talking about the podcast, and it had me reflect a little bit of like the podcast where we were at when we started. We literally documented ourselves growing over the course of 2 years
Yeah.
through many, many topics. To the
Yeah.
point now we're talking about these concepts where it's more fluid
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So like I want to
Yeah.
be mindful about where we came from to where we are at now, where we are going. Like we're always in transition, and that's okay.
Yeah. Started from the bottom, now
Now
we
we
here.
started from the bottom, now we here.
Yeah. It is a beautiful evolution to see where we started and where we're at, and seeing the progress and the trial and errors that we have experienced throughout the years, and also to realize, not to realize, but like people know, like we're humans too. We make mistakes. I recently went through a situation where I made a mistake and I was out of integrity. And I apologized. I owned up to my part, and I had a really clearing conversation with that person, um, and they chose not to participate, in my life anymore. And I honor that, and I appreciate that. But I was able to own up and hold myself in my highest self and herself too, and it was a mutual agreement. And so I share that to let you guys know that I am not perfect. I am humans. I make mistakes. Lack of judgments happen at times, but I'm always the kind of person that I'm going to own up to it. I'm going to correct the action, and I'm going to learn something from it. I'm going to move on, and then now I have awareness on that now. And I'm like, oh wow, now I'm aware of that. thank you God or universe for giving me the opportunity to learn something that I was not conscious of, you know. So
Exactly. I appreciate you bring that into the perspective of we go out and have experiences in life. What is experiences but like trial and error with success and failure. So you're making a good relationship between both.
yeah,
The number one thing that I always remember, which it left the imprint on like how you and I interact, is when you're in it, you may not see the way out, but having co-regulation of a good support system and community or people that you trust to kind of like voice to and them hold a mirror to you
mhm.
has definitely been critical to my own growth. One key thing that I remember is when I was going through a breakup a couple years ago, I was at work. I was calling because we were roommates at that time. I was calling you like every break that I had. And there was one where I was just feeling so disheartened and like just stuck in fear because I was at a service position. So I'm meeting high end kind of arrogant people and they're talking down to me. So like I'm already at this position where like I'm just getting beat down and my own head is beating me even more down. And I remember you expressed was like, I know you don't want to hear this right now, but I'm excited to see where you're gonna grow from this. And like I was like, I don't want to hear that right now. But it was true because in retrospect is where I saw the wisdom. And a couple months later, the roles reversed.
I don't want to hear that.
And I said the
Uh,
same thing to you, and like we were able to grow in that respect.
yeah,
And that segues into kind of like the final announcements around this is co-regulation is definitely helpful.
yeah,
And wherever you find that support system, it's kind of like I don't like having people co-sign my bullshit. I like people that hold me
yeah,
accountable because what's going to end up
yeah,
happening, I show up with some progress done back when we go into our men's meeting every week. At least I try to. And if I can't, then I'll express that. But it's integrity of being honest with myself and others and like, the powers that be of like how I do show up.
yeah,
And we're creating, I'm trying to get more fluid with this. We're creating this workshop called Discover Your Path Workshop. We're looking for 10 men that are interested in showing up to this to find their own way, like that may feel lost. We're opening this up to motivated men that want to participate in this. And if you're available for that or know someone that is, tell them to email hellospiritualpodcast at gmail.com with the subject line of like I'm ready for the Discover Your Path workshop, or
mhm,
DM the Instagram page at Hello Spiritual Podcast. And like always, we love hearing from the community. We love seeing interactions and seeing each one of you grow in your own respects.
yes,
You could message
yeah,
us at the mutual podcast page at Hello Spiritual Podcast, Jose at Jose aka Che, myself at ASG240. We love having conversations, and it goes back into the podcast. Like I want to make
yeah,
that a point. It goes back
yeah,
into the podcast. We're respectful of names and all that, but we'll
yeah,
share the experiences around it, what comes up,
yeah.
because you and I have our own perspective and experiences that we bring to the table, but there's so many others that I would want on
At,
this platform to
yeah,
express to the community because if it benefits me, it's definitely probably going to benefit someone else,
yeah,
right?
yeah, most definitely.
You look so tired.
Dude, dude, I'm so ready to go. I'm gonna make my turmeric latte because that's what I do at night to let the body know it's time to wind down. I'm gonna do some coloring. I didn't do much coloring yesterday, so I'm gonna for sure do some coloring tonight. So that's like my night routine for like self care, soothing is turmeric latte, some coloring, and I do some reflection from the day, do some meditation, then kind of go night night.
Yeah, yeah. See, like those are exactly what we talked about. You
Yeah,
have your own day that is filled with a bunch of things to do, utilizing the self check-ins, utilizing self-talk, how you're talking to yourself, talking to your inner child, and then at the end of the day, there's a grounding ritual that you do, and you end up resting. You get into rest mode to then show
yeah,
up for the next day, which is exactly what
yeah,
we talked about in this podcast.
yeah,
So if you've liked what you heard or are currently listening, just go back and listen to some of the modalities. There's a lot of information, a lot of stuff in this podcast.
yeah.
If you liked what you heard or feel like someone else would benefit from it, like, subscribe the video, send it forward to
Send it
someone,
forward,
send it forward to someone that
man.
may benefit from it. We're just trying to create a collective community that would help support each other, as well as like if there's something that you got from it, definitely send to someone that may benefit from it, and it just carries on because it eventually comes back to this podcast. So we appreciate
Always.
each and every one of you. We hope that you have an amazing night. Stay warm and dry during the storm, no matter where you're at. We love you. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Have a good night.
Night.